Welcome to the Speak Your Piece podcast. My name is Ian McNaughton, Big E. Thank you very much for joining. It's greatly appreciated. We're recording this on Monday, April 27th, just after 10 a.m. here in Victoria, British Columbia. It's a beautiful day. It's a lovely day to do a podcast. So let's get into it. I will start with some of the SYP stuff, some of our business. If you didn't see on Friday, we made an announcement. On Friday, we dropped a new SYP logo. We started an SYP Patreon, and we're on TikTok. So if you haven't already, go check out all those things. If you haven't already, follow us on Instagram at SYP Pod. You can add us on TikTok, same username. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel where we post full podcast episodes. So if you're listening to this on Spotify and you're like, hey, I want to see Ian's face. I want to see, what his eyes look like when he's doing this. Great news. You have an opportunity to do so when you subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can take a look at our Patreon. We're going to be doing exclusive content there starting this week, actually, which is awesome. And then we're trying to think if there's anything else. You can listen to this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. If you're watching this on YouTube and you're like, I hate Ian's face. I want to shut out his eyes. I don't want to think about looking at him. Thankfully, you can listen to the audio podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. So that's awesome. That's great. Just a little bit of housekeeping. Just wanted to start off the show with. So, glad that we are getting somewhat back to normal, somewhat of a routine. It's great. You love to see it. I love to see it. Just like I love to see the Stanley Cup Playoffs. And there we go. There's my segue. The Edmonton Oilers are on the brink of elimination. The big game last night, the Edmonton Oilers played the Anaheim Ducks. Anaheim won, I believe it was 4-3 in overtime. I think that's what if I remember correctly, that's what it turned out to be. Although everybody was talking about the goal that may or may not should or should not have counted in overtime last night. I think Ryan Poehling got credit with the goal. Shout out my buddy Scott, Ducks fan. He's in his Ryan Poehling era. The puck, how do I set this up? The puck shot at Jarry, who was in net for the Oilers, by the way, shot at Jarry, did trickle through, went underneath the pads of Jarry, and stopped. But while the puck was stopped, Jarry's skate was still moving, and the skate covered the top of it. Now that's what we all saw in replay. That's what replay showed us. That's what the different camera angles showed us. At least in Canada on Sportsnet, we got multiple different angles showing the play, showing the puck crossing the line, maybe not fully crossing the line. Who's to say? As a result, the officials on the ice huddled, called it a good goal, said it was good, and that they were going to go to video replay to get either confirmation or to reverse the call. To which everybody watching on replay thought, well, there's not really enough to overturn it. There's not really enough to say that is a confirmed goal. It's just that's what the call on the ice was a good goal. There wasn't really enough to say it wasn't a good goal. Jarry's skate is on top of the puck. You can't see where the last quarter, fifth of the puck is. So, yeah, it's a good goal. We're calling it a good goal. It's unfortunate for Edmonton. I don't think that's the reason they lost, although you should never leave the game in the referee's hands. That's just what good teams do is take control of it themselves. They don't let the officials decide the outcome of the game. But as a result, you could argue the officials decided the end of the game, and the Anaheim Ducks won. The Anaheim Ducks now have a 3-1 series lead over the Oilers. The Oilers, I'm sure, are a little bit ticked off about how that ended. Unfortunately, I just think that's the process. I'm curious to know how the refs, like Oilers fans, I'm curious to know how the refs decided that it was a good goal. I'm curious to see if, anything more comes of this. I would be asking questions if I was an Oilers fan. I know Oilers fans are because that's just, the kind of fans Oilers fans are. But yeah, I mean, it's not great being down 3-1. Thankfully, you have home ice advantage, so you have at least one, if not two more, maybe games in your own barn. Who knows? Um, yeah, it was just kind of a perfect kind of encapsulation of the Oilers right now. Of this should be different in a way. I think the process was fine, but maybe we decide how a game ends in a more appropriate, a more confirming fashion instead of just like most of us were just like, yeah, I guess. And that's kind of the Oilers right now, where everybody's kind of like shrugging their shoulders at the Oilers and being like, yeah, this is kind of just who these guys are right now. They had to start Tristan Jarry last night, who, as far as I could tell, was not the reason they lost, but also gave up that goal at the end in overtime, and the Oilers lost. So who's to say? McDavid's been really quiet this series. I don't know. I unfortunately I think this is just kind of who Edmonton is. Now the Oilers could come back conceivably from a 3-1 series deficit and win this series. I wouldn't be shocked. It wouldn't surprise me. That is who you know that's who the Oilers are. That's who this team is. That's Edmonton in the playoffs in a nutshell. Um, I think Anaheim, credit to them, have played well. I don't think they've played, you know, spectacular hockey. I don't think they've been world beaters. I think there are better teams in this postseason. But kind of in a way, you don't have to be the best team to beat the Edmonton Oilers. The Ducks have done a great job of capitalizing on either mistakes like McDavid's turnover in his own zone in game two, or like kind of okay goaltending, or poor defense, like Evan Bouchard just doing his best impersonation of a pylon. Like I think the Ducks, they have to be on their A game, not just because the Oilers are also going to be on their A game as well. The Oilers will give you opportunities. The Edmonton Oilers will gift you goals if you take advantage of them. And I think the Ducks, maybe not on every opportunity, if you go back to game one, not every opportunity has been capitalized, but most opportunities have been, and that's why the Ducks are up 3-1 against the Oilers. The Ducks, I mean, they've benched Gudis. They've sent Gudis to the press box, which maybe that's the reason they're seeing more success. Like Jackson Lacombe has been uh, a huge part for the Ducks defensively on the back end. I think he's probably been the best defensive defenseman in this series, which is saying something. It hasn't been a series full of defense, I'll tell you that much. But no, I think the Ducks have done enough. They've put themselves in a great opportunity, up 3-1. They got to go back to Alberta, unfortunately. But the Ducks can absolutely win Game 5 and end this series on Tuesday night. The Oilers can also come back down 3-1 and somehow advance to the next round. Who knows? I'm leaning more in the Ducks camp right now than the Oilers camp, because I think the Oilers have a bit of soul searching to do, not just this roster, but the team identity and the team organization itself. Uh, I still can't believe Evan Bouchard and Darnell Nurse are getting paid almost $20 million combined, and there's no defense being played by either one of them. So I don't know. I think the Oilers, it's more of an organization thing, that I think they need to actually figure out and resolve. But who knows? Who knows? Anything is possible. Um, Also over the weekend, Ottawa Senators got KO'd. The LA Kings got KO'd. The two arguably worst teams in the postseason are finally gone. The Senators went out in a very Senators way by kicking and screaming and punching everybody. Shout out Ridley Gregg. That dude's got to get a suspension for his sucker punch and being the third man in. Um, that's the real Ottawa Senators hockey I know of. If you can't beat them, you beat them up, and it's some real old school classy hockey being played there. The LA Kings were doing their best to keep up with the Colorado Avalanche, but they're the LA Kings. They're just not on the same level as the Avs, and in fact are probably two, three, four steps below the Avalanche. And hockey's at least, especially in the playoffs where you rarely see blowouts. This is probably the closest thing to a real blowout of just the Avs dominating play for almost every game. Like there's maybe been a couple of periods where the Kings have been better, but really it's been Colorado threatening to step on the Kings' throat, sometimes doing so, but not for a long period of time, letting off so that the Kings can get air, and then the Kings eventually are compromised by Nate McKinnon and Cale Makar and Scott. I'm Patrick Waugh in the 1990s Wedgwood. That's the Colorado Avalanche for you, and the Carolina Hurricanes. I'll shout out the Hurricanes because the Hurricanes, I think they have a bit of a chip on their shoulder. Uh, they were doing some great stuff against Ottawa. Shout out Taylor Hall. That's my most surprising like guy thing, whatever you want to say from that series. I was surprised at how well Taylor Hall played. Maybe I forgot about how well Taylor Hall has played. Like he kind of bounced around from a little bit with Boston and had that short stint with Buffalo and been trying to find a spot. Like he was in Chicago before he was in Carolina. Now he's on the Hurricanes and he's just the perfect like second line forward. Doesn't have to be the top guy, but he could be a really good second line guy and fill in some points, fill in some goals, whatever you need. He's done that. So kudos to Taylor Hall. Kudos to the Carolina Hurricanes. Bye bye Ottawa and bye bye LA. The LA thing, like I'm LA, I think actually has to figure some shit out from an organization standpoint. Like Ken Holland should not be your GM, but Ken Holland is your GM. So I can't wait to see what old, veteran he brings in, whether it's Vander Kane. I don't know. The Kings are going to do something stupid this offseason. And from the Senators' perspective, I don't think they. I don't know. I think the Senators are fine as a team. Like I don't think they're on the same level as Tampa Bay and Montreal as we've seen in this postseason. Like that's a really good series, Tampa Bay Montreal. Ottawa's just not there. Ottawa's not on that level. I think they're even a little bit better than Detroit, but at least they're not like Toronto. And the other thing you have to consider if you're the Senators, really if you're any Atlantic team, but most of the teams that are out right now that are not playing playoff hockey, like your Senators, your Red Wings, your Maple Leafs, that there is Florida lurking in the background. So you still have to get better. You still have to improve. And I don't know if that's just Ottawa going to get a new goalie. That kind of feels like where it's going to go with Ottawa. They're just going to get a different goalie. Um, I don't know if Brady Tkachuk is going to want out. I wouldn't be surprised. Brady Tkachuk, as a matter of fact, let's pull it up here. I could see him going and going to play in the States. It's such a dumb year for Brady Tkachuk. Like obviously, like he got gold at the Olympics. That's great. His club team has just been not abysmal, but like has left a lot to be desired. Like I think the Senators this year were so bad, and then they finally turned it on. They didn't really have a consistent goalie all year. It is slow, but I'm pretty sure Brady Tkachuk still got several years left on his deal, and I'm assuming he has a no movement, no trade clause, so he essentially controls his destiny and where he wants to go and what he wants to do. But yeah, I kind of wonder if this is Brady's last game, last series with Ottawa. I wonder if this is Linus Ullmark's last series with Ottawa. I wonder if they just like they're tired of the nonsense and they're tired of the bullshit. But that's kind of who Ottawa is, that they're just full of bullshit and they're just full of, dumbassery and stupid things, like stupid petty things is kind of what the Ottawa Senators are known for. So maybe they keep it going. Um, let's talk about the Pittsburgh Penguins. It's Monday. They're trying to stay alive again tonight, Game 5 in Pittsburgh. The Pens are playing the Flyers. The Penguins won Game 4. They do Archer's Shilovs, helping the Penguins stay alive. He's going to get to start again in Game 5. Yeah, he's going to get to start in Game 5. He started Game 4. Um, I don't know. Listen, I at the beginning of the series thought that the Penguins were going to just wipe the floor with Philly. I thought it wasn't even going to be close. Boy, was I wrong. The Flyers have looked the part of like a playoff team. Every 10 years, every once in a while, the Broad Street Bully, mandate comes into effect, and it works for the Flyers. They don't typically go far, but you know they can win a round. Shout out Porter Martone on Philadelphia. He's been tremendous. Trevor Zegras has been tremendous. Playoff Rasmus Ristolainen has come out of nowhere. Yeah, I think the Pens probably, like me, the Pens probably thought this was going to be a series more in their favor. But the Flyers came out to play. The Flyers have been tremendous. They've basically been running with their top goalie of Dan Vladar. Like the Flyers have done everything that's been asked of them. Now the Penguins, listen, you don't want to go, at least you're not getting swept by the Flyers, but you definitely don't want to lose to the Flyers in the first round. Especially not this version of the Flyers where I think they still have moves to make. They still have room to grow and improve. This is even the best version of Philadelphia. So we'll see if Pittsburgh can stay alive for another night. If they can hold on. I'm rooting for Pittsburgh. I'm rooting for Short King, Sidney Crosby. I'm rooting. I know he's not playing now, but Stu Skinner. I'm rooting for Sheloffs. That's a cool story. Sheloffs, if he can go on a run in Pittsburgh, that'd be awesome. And of course, I have to root for my guy Kyle Dubas, who I apparently look alike. Look like. I look a lot like Kyle Dubas. Here we go. Buffalo. The Sabres beat the Bruins 6-1 yesterday in Boston in Game 4. The Sabres have a 3-1 series lead. They're going back home to Buffalo on Tuesday. They might be the SYPers. You know what I mean? Like the Buffalo SYPers. I've been getting Buffalo pilled. Like I'm if it's not the Red Wings, I'm glad it's the Sabres. I'm also kind of rooting for Montreal because I think that would be fun if they could win the cup. But it's also cool that Buffalo's in it. Like the madhouse that's going to be the KeyBank Center on Tuesday night. It's going to be insane. I think the Sabres have found their guy, i.e., Alex Lyon, as the goalie. Goaltending is just you ride the hot hand until it fizzles out, and that's what the Sabres are doing. So kudos to Buffalo, kudos to the Sabres. They haven't won the series yet. I will say they haven't won the series yet. It's still 3-1. The Bruins have won a game in Buffalo already, so they could do it again. Nobody's saying they can't. But I mean the Sabres and they're not even ragtag, just like the Sabres just have a bunch of dudes. Like the Rasmus Dahlins, the Owen Powers, Matthias Samuelsons on the back end, combined with the Josh Domes, combined with the Jason Zucker, I think has actually been like fun to watch. Um, you know, Page has been great. Josh Dunn, yeah, I mean, and then you have Tuck and Krebs and all those guys. Like it's not even a ragtag. It's just Buffalo just has a bunch of dudes, and it works. And now they're getting the goaltending. We'll see if they can do the thing on Tuesday night. But yeah, the Buffalo SYPers. If the Sabres win on Tuesday, I'll make a proclamation. I'll make a statement. Uh, I'll do a bet with the city of Buffalo. If the Sabres win the cup. But that's if they win Tuesday. The Wild and Stars are tied 2-2 in their series, along with Montreal and Tampa Bay. Arguably been two of the best series in for my money. Edmonton, Anaheim's up there too, but you know, just some really, really good hockey is being played in Montreal, Tampa, Dallas, Minnesota. Uh, Dallas, Minnesota goes on Tuesday. I believe Montreal, Tampa goes on Wednesday for Game 5 of their series. Um, yeah, like there's so many good players. There's so many top guys who are contributing. Spurgeon with the OT winner the other night for Minnesota. Hagel had a great performance for Tampa Bay on Sunday. I really can't say a lot about these series because everybody's been these have been as advertised. I think you could arguably say they were going to be two of the best series before the playoffs, and they have been so far. They've been the best bang for buck for pound, bang for bang. Um, just wonderful series. It's a shame that we're losing two of these four teams after round one because that's just insane. Um, and shout out Lane Hudson on Friday night with the OT winner in Montreal. Like incredible hockey. Four phenomenal teams, and it's just too bad that two of them have to go after at the end of this week, essentially. And then the last series, I guess I'll bring up Utah leading Vegas. Like, it's been fine. I don't the hockey's been okay. Utah, I think, has really done a good job of just stymieing Vegas. Like, I think it got out to a 3-1 or 4-1 lead Friday in Salt Lake City. Um, the Mammoths are doing a good job of slowing down Vegas. Yeah, I feel like this is Vegas's you know opportunity to this is a get right game for Vegas. They need to have some momentum if they can do it in Salt Lake City. Good on them. If not, yeesh, yeesh. But it's Utah's series to lose. It really is. I feel like Utah has been the better team for almost all three of these games. They have the lead. They are back home. They've won in Vegas already this series. It's Utah's series to lose in my books. I yeah, that's that's my take on Utah and Vegas. So I think Anaheim's gonna beat Edmonton. Carolina and Colorado have already won. Philly is probably gonna beat Pittsburgh. Although I am rooting for a Penguins comeback. The Sabres are gonna beat Boston. Um, the Wild and Stars. I think Dallas will win that series, but it'll be close. It'll be really close. If they might get more overtime in that series. Who's to say? And I'm still rolling with Montreal to beat Tampa. I don't feel great about picking any one of these teams because like I wouldn't be surprised if Montreal or Tampa won. I wouldn't be surprised if Minnesota or Dallas won. But I'll roll with the Stars and the Habs to win their series. Minnesota, Tampa Bay, both going home after round one. Jesus. And then the Mammoth are going to beat Vegas. The Golden Knights are not going to last. So there you go. There's your Stanley Cup playoff update. And if Buffalo wins on Tuesday, I'll make an announcement. I'll make a social media announcement for the Sabres on behalf of the Sabres, not on behalf. I'll make an announcement with the Sabres because we are officially becoming the Buffalo SYP Bears. Like we are in this. We are set. Um, yeah, I listen. Sabres just have to win Tuesday. That's all I'm. We are the Buffalo SYP Bears. That's all I'm saying. Go Sabres. Let's go Buffalo. I'll be drinking again so much Labatt's and eating so many Cheerios on behalf of the city of Buffalo. Let's do a little baseball talk. Let's chat a little ball. Boston Red Sox. I'm gonna do there's a baseball article coming out here that I got in the next little bit. But Boston Red Sox, they have the worst AL record. I don't think they're as bad as the Mets or Phillies are, which is a whole different. That's a whole different conversation I'll talk about in my baseball newsletter. But Alex Cora fired. He was the manager of the Red Sox. They also fired their hitting coach, Peter Fatsey. They fired their assistant hitting coach, Dylan Lawson. They fired their bench coach, Ramon Vasquez. They fired their third base coach, Kyle Hudson. And I can't believe that MLB teams are hiring guys named Kyle to be coaches. Joe Cronin, who is their major league hitting strategy coach, fired, which frankly isn't your hitting coach kind of your major league hitting strategy coach? And Chad Tracy, the Worcester Red Sox manager, the Boston AAA team, not that Chad Tracy, not the former Canadian. Well, he's still Canadian, but not the former big leaguer from Canada. That's not this guy. Chad Tracy is serving as the interim manager for the Red Sox. So I'm going to do a bit more of a deep dive later on. The Red Sox, they've kind of done this to themselves. Now, there's not like I don't know that anybody thought it was going to be this bad early on for the Red Sox. And baseball is one of those sports I'm definitely more content of just like, hey, there's a lot of ball left. We're not even at the end of April. We're like a month into the season, if that. Like we have 4 or 5 more months of this. Okay, like have some patience. But to fire your guy in April and to fire 4 or 5 coaches as well, it leads me to think that you wanted to do this, that you had thoughts of doing this before, and now you have an interim manager. I don't care. I don't know enough about the Worcester Red Sox to know if this guy's any good or if they are any good or how this guy's going to translate into the major leagues. But I mean, I don't know. I think the Red Sox have done this to themselves. They really have been on this path, and I know they've made the playoffs, but they've been on this path since they traded Mookie back in 2020. Like that was the real like kick in the nuts to Boston sports fans, to yeah, not even just Red Sox fans, like the city of Boston. Like those are and I know we all call them assholes because they kind of are, but that is one of, if not the most passionate, hardcore sports fandom cities in America. And you traded one of their best baseball players for 50 cents on the dollar, if that, back in 2020. And since then, you've kind of been reeling. And you kind of did the same thing. Not to say that Rafael Devers was Mookie Betts a year ago, but you traded Devers for 50 cents on the dollar because that whole situation was ludicrous. Like I don't know. I thought about I've thought about this since the Mookie trade, and the Red Sox aren't the only team that acts like this. Like I'm sure there are Cubs fans who would tell you this. I'm sure there are Yankees fans who would tell you this. I'm sure there are Giants fans who would tell you this. It's stop acting like a minor league or like a small market team when you play in one of the biggest cities in America. Like stop acting like the Pirates. Stop acting like the A's. Even though you are in Boston, Massachusetts. You are in Chicago, Illinois. You are a big market, big deal. People give a shit. The Fenway was sold out for however many years in a row in your sellout streak. I mean, you're not gonna increase stands at Fenway. You can't expand Fenway, so your seats are your seats. I just don't understand the mentality behind it outside of just saving a few dollars, making sure your bottom line is safe, which you did that by trading Betts and Devers, and now when the team kind of stinks and you don't really have anybody, and I mean, I think Roman Anthony's good. Fuck, they have another outfielder that I like, but like, I don't know, like there's just like you're the Boston Red Sox. You're one of the most well-known, famous, recognizable brands in arguably not even the sports world, just in the world. Like you know, it yeah, I don't know. It frustrates me. I'm not even a Red Sox fan. My mom's a Red Sox fan. Um, and I know people who are Red Sox fans, and it's got to be extremely frustrating to keep doing this and keep like listen, the Red Sox have their World Series title. So I'm not going to say that they're deprived. I'm not going to say that they're hard done by. But in the last 6 years, like whatever the hell's been going on, like I'm going to say even just like since that 2018 World Series, like since they beat the Dodgers, yeah, like it's just I don't know what's going on. I don't understand what the mentality is, what the mindset is outside of just, hey, we got to save a few dollars, and now as a result, we've got to fire Alex Cora because we've traded, you know, since 2018, since 2019, we've traded Mookie Betts, we've traded Rafael Devers, we've traded some of our best hitters. Like I don't, and you know, the baseball mentality nowadays is, oh, just go bring in David Ortiz and Big Poppy, and he'll teach those guys how to hit. Which, I mean, maybe. I don't know about Manny. Like, what about Manny? What about Manny Ramirez? Like, I don't. Maybe, but I don't know. I don't understand why a team, why like, why we don't have more Dodgers and more teams wanting to put their money where their mouth is and go be a real ball club. Go be a legitimate MLB ball club in the year 2026. Now, the Mets are, and the Mets stink, but that's also the Mets. The Mets are cursed. The Mets are the fucking Maple Leafs of Major League Baseball. What they do doesn't, you know, it's more of an anomaly than it is the norm. But like the Cubs and the Red Sox and I think the Giants are maybe getting a little bit better at this. But all of these guys, all these teams that are just haggling like, oh, we don't know if Kyle Tucker's coming back, or ooh, we don't know if we want the Mookie Betts, you know, long term outlook, whatever. Like, okay, now Mookie is playing second base and has been, which okay, figure it out. You guys are smart. You guys presumably are smart. You guys presumably know what you're doing. You're worried about something that's going to happen 6 years from now, and that's why you're trading him today for 50 cents on the dollars. Or Rafael Devers of like, hey, Raphael, we want you to play first base because we have this Alec Bregman guy here. And Devers is like, no, fuck off. So then you trade Devers for nothing. And now Bregman's not even there. Now Bregman's in Chicago. Like, this is just the, like, it's such short term, like, yeah, I don't even know. It's short term. You can't even process it. You can't even, like, think there's another option. It's not even like planning. It's just like, well, this is the way it's gonna be. No, just think, and don't just make rash decisions because that's what's best for today. And yeah, I don't know. I'm wanted to just mention that I'm gonna have more in my baseball newsletter coming out on the Patreon this week. So to look out for that. But yeah, that's my Red Sox take. Not that I feel bad for Alex Cora because he's a cheater because he's on those Astros teams. He can fuck off. But the fact that the Boston Red Sox are being treated like a fucking like Miami Marlins, not quite that poverty, but the freaking like it, yeah. You should. Roman Anthony should not be the guy leading your team. He should be an extra piece, like an extra, just like he's gonna be good now, but wait in 3 to 5 years. Like that's what Roman Anthony should be instead of being like the number 3 hitter on your team. So there you go. There's my Red Sox rant. A couple Sicko Sports updates for those who are interested. Shout out the Canadian women's rugby team. They beat the U.S. 50-12 in Bridgeview, which is where Chicago Fire used to play. That was in the Pacific 4 series. Canada took second because Canada lost to New Zealand the week prior. So shout out to the Canadian women's rugby team. They kick ass. I think they're going to play again in September against England. That match is going to be in Exeter, and then Canada is actually hosting England. The women's rugby team is going to host England in October at BMO Field in Toronto. That was just announced this morning. So that's awesome. You love to see that. And then Carson Hocevar, he won the Jacqueline's 500 at Talladega yesterday. He moves up 4 spots in the standings. If the season ended today, he'd have a playoff spot. I know he's like the new guy that everybody hates because he always causes accidents, but hey, he's going to be in the playoffs if he keeps this up, if he keeps rolling. So unfortunately, NASCAR, isn't doing the winning you're in playoff format. They actually you have to do well over the season to get into some, playoff spots. Top 16 gets in, so it's a pretty deep field, all things considered. The other guy I'm interested in, Shane Van Gisbergen, and he is on the fringe, I believe. I think he dropped down maybe to 18th, so he's on the outside looking in. I didn't watch the race yesterday, but it looked like a decent race at Talladega. And then this past weekend was the NFL draft. Fernando Mendoza, shout out to him. He went first overall to the Las Vegas Raiders. The Rams took Ty Simpson in the first round, and Ty Simpson sounds like a kid who would score 65 points for Peterborough in the OHL this year, and not a quarterback you draft in the first round. But hey, to each their own. Good luck, Rams. Good luck. I think Pittsburgh broke their draft attendance. If I saw this week, they got over 800,000 people at the draft this weekend. So shout out, I guess, Pittsburgh and all the Yinzers and all the people who showed up for the draft. That looked like a cool scene. I don't understand. Like, we're doing a draft in Pittsburgh. We do a draft in Cleveland. We could do a draft in Green Bay. Let's do a draft in Seattle. I'll be there. If we do a draft in Seattle, I'll be there. I'll go support what NFL draft weekend has to offer. I like the MLB All-Star Weekend when it was in Seattle, when I was living down there a few years ago. That was fun. That was a good time. And then speaking of Seattle, shout out Dylan from Make-A-Wish. He made the Seahawks pick in the first round on Thursday night. And that dude, he rocks. That dude had so much energy. That dude, letting everybody know that they're the reigning world champions, that rocks. Dude's rule. That's a great moment. Love to see that. Shout out to Dylan. Deserves a shout out at the cheers to you, my man. And seemed like a decent draft weekend for pretty much everybody. I mean, some teams do better than others, but I mean, it's also the draft. Like, I think the draft and kind of free agency, but more the draft, is you get a better understanding of where teams are, or where they think they are organizationally, like where they think they need to improve, where they think they can get better, where they think they can, develop a guy into being the next star tight end. But that's, we'll see. I don't know how any of these guys will actually do on the field. I haven't watched enough, and you don't really know until they're, these guys are in your building and they step on the field themselves and they wear the team's gear and all that sort of stuff. So who knows? So anyways, we're gonna wrap it up there. That is the show for Monday, April 27th. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for watching. Just to conclude, the Oilers are pretty much donezo. We are now referring to them as the Buffalo SYPers. We're Buffalo Pilled. Vegas, sayonara, barring some huge comeback tonight, maybe to even the series. Who knows? Red Sox stink. And you can follow the SYP podcast on Instagram at SYP Pod. You can add us on TikTok at SYP Pod. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can listen to the podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and you can check out the Patreon. We're going to have new content coming out this week, so don't miss it. We can't thank you enough for all your support. It's greatly appreciated. We'll be back again soon. My name is Ian McNaughton. Thank you again for listening, watching. We'll talk to you soon. Peace out.